So talking about the SGE methodology, I would like first and foremost to state that for a company to declare its activities or operations carbon neutral, before a company can say its activity is carbon neutral, it will need to show transparent emissions data. The transparent emissions data will show evidence of best efforts to reduce emissions at its operations. And also it will show how the company intends to or have used offsets for any remaining emissions for the project's life cycle, including scope 3 emissions, or those emissions generated when the customer uses the fuel or the gas, or as the case may be. Whatever the approach that is used, whatever approach is used, it should set out the methodologies that was used to measure, to report, and to verify the emissions. Whatever methodology is being used have to show this. Otherwise, it may not be seen as transparent or as reliable methodology. It must show how it was the method used for the measurement. It must show the method used or the template or the standard used for the reporting. And also it must have proofs or approach on how to verify the emissions. But this is focused on LNG cargo, that's liquefied natural gas cargo. That is the GHG reporting processes. Sorry, there's a construction going on the way near where I am, so you may be hearing some sounds or noise in the background. So this is focused basically on the LNG cargo, the reports that we are reviewing today. The link will be dropped in the chat box so that we can all have a copy of it as a training material in-house, or if by any means we publish this presentation, we would seek permission from the report owners, and we will also provide the links for the public to see the reports that was reviewed. But basically, this is for in-house training, and I hope that all the parties involved will do some thorough research and compare the methods, and then we finally see which methods we are adopting at Richflood or multiple methods we should be considering. So like I said earlier, this particular report is focused on the LNG cargo. That is the processes, the greenhouse gas reporting processes to deliver a consistent and verified SGE for each delivered cargo. So the statement of greenhouse gas emissions methodology is one of the first published. That's why we are studying it. It's one of the first published methodologies specifically developed to quantify the greenhouse gas emissions associated with a delivered LNG cargo. So it may not be so comprehensive as to some projects that we are currently working on, but at least the methodology, we are reviewing it to have a grasp or to have an understanding of the method that was first used for the LNG cargo. And it also provides measurement, reporting, and verification. That's MRV. I will say something a little bit about MRV later. It provided the MRV methodology, that is measurement, reporting, and verification methodology, as a component to the commonly used approach. So the boundary of reporting includes emissions attributable to the LNG cargo from the wellhead to discharge flange at the discharge point. And this is applicable to the LNG sellers and the buyers. Okay, so for the seller, this would include emissions from all upstream segments, including liquefaction, that is the wellhead of the loading arm of the LNG ship. It may also include shipping depending on ownership of that segment. But for the buyers, it will normally take responsibility of emissions from regasification, distribution, and end use of same. So next slide, please. Yeah, so the SGE methodology in this case study is an approach to greenhouse gas emissions calculations throughout the LNG value chain, and through independent verification. So this enables GHG transparency and credibility of reporting. So such a consistent reporting approach on measurement, on MRV, that is measurement, reporting and verification, is very necessary in the LNG industry to become more cognizant of GHG emissions, which should lead to diverse improvements that we always call continuous improvement, okay, in the management of such emissions. So this report was developed by Chevron in collaboration with Qatar Energy and Pavilion Energy, and also our dear colleagues at Environmental Resource Management Limited, that is ERM in the UK, I believe it's the UK ERM, but they developed this, and that's why we're looking at it, because these are credible people that must have used good standards based on my review of the report. So moving on ahead, I mentioned about MRV, which is a measurement. So second, measurement, reporting, and verification. I try to put the definition for you to be able to see and have some understanding, because the terminology came up repeatedly in the reports that you are going to be reviewing and discussing today. So the MRV is key to unlocking climate finance and showing progress on climate goals. MRV also seeks to prove that whatever activity has actually avoided or removed GHG emissions is XYZ. You know, these are the activities that has avoided GHG emissions or that has removed GHG emissions, so that the actions or the efforts can now be converted into credits with monetary value. This is why the MRV is very, very important. My next slide will show us, next slide, please. Yeah, the definition is available and you can read more on it, but also it was well captured in the reports that we are reviewing. So you can see more of that. So there you go. Excuse me. You can see that 1 credit equals 1 ton of reduced greenhouse gas emissions expressed in tons of CO2 equivalent. All right, so these credits are the results that the World Bank pays for through specific, results-based climate finance arrangements. Like there are many arrangements or agreements that the World Bank goes into with different governments and institutions, but this has to be result-based. And then an example is the one showing on the screen, the ERPA, that is the Emissions Reductions Payment Agreement. There are also the 3 basic units traded in international carbon markets and used also to fill countries' NDCs, that's nationally determined contributions under the Paris Agreement. Once projects or programs activity are underway or are proposed or are being planned, data is usually collected and processed to calculate the emissions reductions achieved or planned to be achieved against the baseline during the monitoring period. So emissions reduction results are then compiled into a report that is now subject to third-party verification, like I said earlier. So, and the entity or the third party has to be accredited, as per the requirements of the standard being used. And then verifiers often would need to sift through large volumes of data. So it is important to have well-documented results and thoroughly demonstrate accuracy, transparency, and compliance with the standards that has been used and that can help smooth the processes. So the MRV, like I said, is a critical component, and it is being looked upon to be digitalized. So technology is improving the MRV system as it is. I think you will also see some materials in that regard in the report, either in the appendixes or in the report itself. So digital MRV systems, though they are still complex and expensive to implement, but in the long term, they will reduce the cost of generating carbon credits while increasing transparency of the processes. It will also enable more efficient verification and the move toward real-time generation of carbon credits instead of the manual processes and long chain of administrative procedures that is currently being experienced. So the digital MRV will be a game changer in a way, most especially for us at Richflood. We need to research more into it and see how things can be more automated and easier for us to work with our clients and build capacity both in-house and for our clients to be able to key into the digital MRV approach or the digital MRV system, because the current methods to measure, report, and verify emissions reductions can be costly and time-consuming, and is relying on manual approach, operations. But the digital MRV approach, due to technology innovation, will go a long way in making things better. Then let me talk a little bit about the agreement, that is the ERPA agreement. It's a legally binding contract that actually allows one party to deliver verified carbon credits to another party. Okay, so this contract generally involves a government or business in a developing country selling carbon credits to the World Bank's Trust Fund. So certain conditions may govern the exchange and the activities, and also the prices are negotiated before the agreement is signed, before the ERPA is signed. But all parties must agree on the volume of GHG emissions to be reduced during the period of the project or during the period of the contract, the agreement itself, and by what means will this GHG emission be reduced, and then what is the financing amount and the results metric that triggers the payments. So these are the things we are looking at. We have to check thoroughly the carbon credits, how it works, and how the World Bank Trust Funds makes available this agreement to be signed by who. Is it by the government or institutions like our clients, our category 1 clients? Maybe is it can the World Bank Trust Fund sign ERPAs with them also? But also considering our project, the agreement spans between 5 to 10 years, and the payments are made at regular intervals based on reported and verified results. So the World Bank is home to many climate finance initiatives. That's why I'm emphasizing on it. And it encourages environmental action and low carbon projects, climate resilient development, with the overall goal of reducing GHG in projects. So as you know that our project is sensitive, and the world is interested in that project. So I think also that the World Bank may be interested. I think we should write on behalf of the client, or we should advise the client also on having these processes in place with the World Bank Trust Fund and the ERPA approach to things. So, but for some programs, climate finance is provided upfront to support a project. You know, like in our own case, some of the projects are proposed projects. So climate finance, while other initiatives could be ongoing, but climate finance also can be provided upfront to support the project. So, well, this the agreement or ERPA can help countries like Nigeria or generally developing countries to build a track record of generating and selling carbon credits. I hope I'm still audible. The noise in the background, I'm sorry about that. Of generating and selling carbon credits or applying them to their own emissions reductions targets. So I'll just quickly flip through my remaining. So we are going to be digging, just a second, please. Okay, thank you. So we are going to be digging deep into the SGE method that was used for the reports that we are studying. Sorry. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, I was trying to lay hold of the report and show us on the screen, but let me just proceed in this manner. Perhaps as I'm presenting, I can find the report as well and show same to us. All right, so the slide that is currently showing on the screen is the case study we are using, the SGE method that we are using in the case study. And from my findings, or from my study of the same report, it is designed with reference to current available product lifecycle accounting standards, and principally the GHG protocol, product lifecycle accounting and reporting standard, and the 14064 ISO 14064 2018 standard. Okay, it assumes the use of established industry approaches for the calculation of GHG emissions associated with combustion, flaring, venting, fugitive emissions, and imported energy. So the method does not seek to mandate a particular standard or quantification approach, but the boundary of reporting includes emissions that is attributable to the LNG cargo from wellhead to discharge flange at the discharge points. So this next chart, which is what I was trying to find in the report earlier, shows us the SGE methodology across the life cycle. You can see over here, we have the upstream energy companies, the LNG facilities, and then the shippers or the traders. That's the shipping and unloading. So at the LNG facility, you have the liquefaction, storage, and loading. Excuse me. And at the upstream energy companies angle, you have the production, gathering, and boosting processing. And then you have the gas transport itself. So this is the fully integrated, for a fully integrated energy company. So that's why we need to investigate for our clients, which, where do they fall into, so that in using this report, the SGE methodology approach, we can understand which scope that we are looking at, considering the fully integrated approach that is shown in this diagram. So the reporting should focus on the degree of accuracy that has been achieved in tracking gas molecules from the production through different segments of the supply chain to liquefaction, shipping, and end use. This should be especially important where emissions have been estimated rather than measured. You know, when we are estimating emissions, it's different from when the emissions are empirically measured. So this is important. Measurement and reporting should be subject to verification by technically qualified companies, which should have the capability to replicate a sample of emissions from different assets in the supply chain. There are already templates and we're trying to find it. So the verifier would have these templates actually and be able to see different assets, different approach, but similar emissions profile for the industry. If offsets are used to claim GHG neutrality, like in the case we are working on, this also should be reported in detail along with the MRV emissions, right? So I'm wrapping up very soon. You can see that the method, the scope, assumes the use of established industries approaches for the calculation of the GHG emissions associated with combustion, flaring, venting, fugitive emissions, and imported energy. The boundary of reporting includes emissions attributable to the cargo from wellhead all the way to the discharge point. All right, so this is my last slide over here, as you can see. And that's the carbon footprint quantification approach by the SGE methodology. So as captured in the report, it is based on the principles of coherence, consistency, transparency, relevance, and accuracy, as you must have seen in the report itself. So as we go on with the review of the report, I would like us to, in a way, apply it to our project, our ongoing project, or futuristic project that we are looking at, but most especially the ongoing project. I would like us to relate it to it, and I would like us to go through it thoroughly and have a full understanding of the World Bank funding approach for offsets, carbon offsets or carbon credit, and other relevant information as we may be able to find in the report. I know that you have studied it and you are able to take us through, and we should learn one or two things from the report itself. So the accounting approach is very important. There's what I saw in the report that says global warming potential, that's GWP potential of the project. We need to find that and see how to relate it with our project, most especially the templates. We need to find the templates and see how to relate it with our current projects that we are working on. So the calculation method also that is stated in the report, we need to generally understand it and check the method, the selection method of the SG selection process, and the preferred method versus the alternative methods, the monitoring plan, the monitoring methodology plan. We need to understand it, and the emission sources, across the value chain. We need to check the emission sources, the primary data collection, the available secondary data, and the available standards that we could use for the LNG sector. So the secondary data methodologies, we need to check both the preferred and the alternative methodology and be able to understand it as well. So the key factors that will influence the variability in the life cycle also, we need to understand it. And the offsets, the accounting for the offsets and captured emissions is in the report as well. So, and then the assurance section of the report also talked more about the content and the implementation of the plan and the internal quality checks that was put in place. I want us to pay attention to that as well. And the contents of the different level of assurances that was given, the timing of assurance and the reliability of same. I would like us to study it thoroughly and see how to go about it. The LCA also, that's life cycle analysis that was done for the modeling approach and the entire study, just like I showed in the diagram earlier. I think this diagram, the LCA analysis or the modeling approach across the value chain, we need to understand it as well and see how to apply it in our future work. Also, the guidance notes, if you check the appendixes or the annexes, you will see that there are some guidance notes on the allocation of emissions to LNG. So we need to pay attention to those guidance notes to see the production stage, the midstream gas processing, and the LNG production. I think it's in 3 stages, the stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, the example that was given, which is the production stage, the midstream, and the LNG production itself, the midstream gas processing, and then the LNG production. We need to check the guidance notes and check the reference in terms of the source of that and see if it's something we could also adopt. Also, you will see examples of secondary data from LNG projects. That will also be very useful for us in the course of our dialogue and our study, in the course of this workshop. So you will also see the content of the monitoring plan in the annexes. I think Annex D, you'll see the content of same and the verification report formats, the reporting formats. So I think with this, we could make a very good progress in terms of understanding the method, and the applicability of it. So we should also ask questions a lot. Let's ask questions a lot so that we use this to be able to understand for the sake of understanding and learning. It's very simple. It's not that complex. I know there are complexities in it, but it's not that technical or difficult to understand. First, you just check the reporting principles, you check the boundaries, and then most importantly, the quantification and the allocation of methods that was used. And then you now move further to the reporting style, and then the assurances. The assurances are important because without the assurances, the credibility of the study would not be strong enough for adoption. So we'll do more studies, but first let's do this and understand this, and then we will now check other methods that are available, because this was in 2021, this is 2023. So in 2 years, other methods would have popped up. And as a technical team, we should be able to be finding these methods and working with the software providers to see how to make things easier for reporting. Thank you very much. I will stop sharing now. And let's have a very nice deliberation, question and answer I'll be in the background and I'll be also be listening and asking questions as we go. Thank you.